Good morning everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a video for you answering some of the most asked questions here on my channel. And I thought to make it a little bit more visually interesting, I would go around the land and show you some of my favorite places. But that already brings me to my first question and my first favorite place, namely the yurt. As some of you might have seen over the last year, we had to wait quite a while for the yurt to arrive. And in the end, it was not the yurt that we had ordered from Russia. But now that we have it, it's all set up, it's very comfortable, and it's the perfect little home that we had always wanted. And it's a good temporary structure in the time that we work on the land, clear all the bushes, as well as maybe start building a house. Related to that, I want to get the first and probably most asked question out of the way. Do you need a permit? Is this legal? How are the authorities about all this? And my answer to that is I'm no legal expert. So I get this question a lot, and I totally understand because you want to know how to do all this yourself. But it's really hard for me to answer that because all the rules are very different around Portugal. So what might be doable here in the district might not be possible in other districts, or even like small local communities that have different rules about that. So on this channel I want to show you how we live, but I cannot advise you on any of the legal stuff. I know that kind of sounds like a cop-out, but I really don't feel comfortable advising people and then they start doing something and then it turns out that it's not legal on the land that they have bought. It's all very specific. It's kind of hard sometimes to figure out what's actually allowed. I know that, and I know that there's lots of different opinions and lots of different ways of thinking about it floating around on the internet. When we started to move here, we had the same. I will also link a video in the description box down below of a guy who has a company building wood structures here in Portugal, and I think even here in the area. And he can tell you a little bit more because he talks to more architects, he talks to the camera more, and that's a really helpful video. Okay, so that brings me to the second question. Are we completely off-grid? Well, as you can see, we have our solar system. We only recently installed this bigger system, which you can see in another video. It might not be beautiful, but it's what you need for electricity here. Yes, we are completely off-grid. We have our solar system, and we can now run a washing machine and a fridge, which we are in the process of installing right now. We have the water from our well that's completely filled up now, and we pump it up into tanks. We have 2 for the garden and we have 1 above the yurt, and we're gonna add another one to that. And we can now use our pump on the solar system. It doesn't use, if we use it during the day, it doesn't even take anything from the batteries, it just pumps it up with the extra power that it's generating. So that's really awesome. We don't have to use the loud generator anymore. We do have a generator for rainy days and we just had to have it in the starting up period. So we have the solar, we have the water from our well, we have a composting toilet. I have to be honest, I don't know why people do anything other than that, especially here where you have to be very considerate of the water that you're using. And this way, if you let it compost, you can feed it back to the land in a couple years. So that feels really good. And yeah, you have to maybe get over the yuck factor a little bit. But for us, it's no issue. We love it. We don't want a flushing toilet ever, I think. So we might build something more permanent. But for now, this really works for us. And then maybe the biggest question, it's always a very well-performing video in the van life niche, as I've seen, how do we shower? Well, right now we just have a bucket, we use a cup. Most people around the world actually wash themselves like that. So you just find a private place and then you can wash yourself. We will be building a shower next, a little bathhouse, but it's on the list of the many projects. And since we do have water and a bucket, it was not the main priority, although a shower would be amazing. So that's one of the upcoming projects, and we have some ideas of how we can do the warm water and everything like that. So you'll see that in an upcoming video. And for Wi-Fi, here in the countryside, it can be kind of up and down. We specifically went on the land with our phone before we bought it to see how the reception was, and it was great. But we do have some friends who kind of live in valleys where the tower doesn't reach them. We can actually see the tower from here, and we have just a little 4G router that works well enough for uploading videos and all that stuff. So do take that into consideration if you're looking for land and you want good internet reception on your phone. Another thing that you could do is satellite internet, which also works quite well, but can be a little bit more expensive than a small 4G router. Another thing I wanted to address, which I got quite frequently, and I don't really understand why. I do understand a little bit. People were saying, "Oh my god, did you really build the deck on some rocks?" Yes, we did. We want a non-permanent structure. I prefer not to use concrete if we can not do that. So what we did, and people actually built houses from these rocks in the olden days, and many of them still exist. We used very big schisto rocks. This is not a porous rock like granite, and the ground here is really super hard. So in the back it's even just more schisto rock. So I assure you it's super stable. We actually took a long time to make all the pillars really fit well on top of each other. So it's not like we just put some rocks on top of each other and then put the deck on there. It's really super stable. I don't see that it will just wash away anytime soon. Altogether, I think the weight of the deck and the yurt is about a ton or even more. So it really keeps it down as well. Nothing is forever, of course, but then we also use wood, which is not forever. So sure, it will not be here in 200 years, but that's also not what we're after at all. So another one of my favorite places is the garden. We've been working really hard on it, as you could have seen. And I've really enjoyed getting my hands dirty and starting to grow our own food, so that we can work towards our self-sufficiency. And it's just a really nice calming activity. So we love the garden. As does Martin.
Yeah, I took a break with the watering of the garden so that I could answer some questions that you had. And
what was the second most asked question?
It was about goats. It was, why don't we have goats? Why don't we use goats to clear the land?
Oh my god, you should use goats. You are so stupid for not using goats.
Yes, hi Bill. And the answer is pretty simple. We are not ready for goats. Goats need infrastructure like stables and fencing, and we don't have that, and also we don't have that great of a pasture yet to have support animal life like grazers. And we had, in the beginning, we thought about it, of course, and there was a neighbor that came by with his herd of goats, and he did all the pastures around our place, and he said, well, your estevas and those rock roses and stuff are too thick. The goats won't eat it. The broom, they will only eat the leaves and the young shoots and stuff. So it wouldn't necessarily help us that much to have goats on the land. And that was the main reason why we don't use goats for now. Plus, there are other animals that we would like to have in the future maybe, but the first thing we have to do is to get some fenced in areas and to get the infrastructure right in order to have goats. And those were also the answers of people in the comments that do have goats. they all say that goats are hard work, and we know, and therefore we don't have it because we don't have time, because we have lots of work to do still.
Yeah.
So I
and
hope
goats would get into the garden so easily, they could just jump it.
Yeah.
So we need much more fencing.
Yeah,
and
that's the fencing thing.
protecting
Yeah.
what we're growing and the young trees, and it's not so easy as you think.
No, no. And I hope that answers the question about goats.
So another one of my favorite places here on the land is this old olive tree. Altogether we have about 100 trees here on the land, and this is probably one of the oldest that still has the original trunk. Because we do also have some where you could see that they cut down the whole tree, and then the suckers still exist. But this is one of the oldest ones that we have, and I just love, I love the feeling with sitting an old tree with an old tree, and you can kind of feel how much they have been through already, to say it very hippie-ish.
Yes.
Yes.
It's very hippie.
Yes. I do love old stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, another question was, how did we meet?
Yeah. Well, we met in university in The Hague in the Netherlands, because we are both Dutch. And
German?
Not German, although I lived in Germany. But we met during our bachelor's there in liberal arts and sciences, and we also lived on campus, which is pretty normal in the US, but it's not normal in Europe. So we had containers stacked on top of each other, and they were all apartments. And she lived downstairs, and I lived on the top. And yeah, then we met after, or at least we met right away, but we started dating after a year or so.
A year, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been 9 years.
9 years now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in that time we lived back in The Hague.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to Scotland for a year for my master's. Then together we moved to Wales for a year.
To Aberystwyth, yeah.
His master's. Then we moved back to The Hague and lived in Haarlem for a while, which is close to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And then we decided this is not for us.
No.
And we moved into the camper van.
Yeah. And for the same price that we had to rent for a year, we bought this place. And it's a much bigger garden.
Yes.
So yeah, and we've enjoyed pretty much every step, because you learn to grow together and to know each other's quirks and fails and stuff, and you learn to love them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think that's the cliche thing, is that when you meet in university, well, for some people that also really means that you have the same work ethic and the same values in life, and I think that's what works in our relationship.
Yeah.
This is another piece of the land that I love. Over here you can see the corner of our land, and it has a cork oak growing in it, and this one is already quite funnily shaped. But then here you can see the trunk just continues and grows more over here. And I just love how interesting nature can be. And in the back there you can see our neighbor's meadow, which he plowed just a couple of weeks ago, but is already growing a lot again already. So we might buy this in the future, because as you can see it's not really used, but that's all talk for the future. Okay, so some general questions about our land. How big is it? How much did it cost? I'll show you the land. So our land starts in the corner here. This is our olive field where we can put some more olives, or maybe a vineyard. Here you have the olive trees. I hope you can see them. The lighting is not great right now. And then we own that hill there. So it goes all the way up to the hill, and in the back there you can hear the road. Our property is about 3 hectares, a little more than that, but because it's mostly sloped and measured from the top in actual square meterage, it's a little bit more. The slope has its ups and its downs. Well, some of it is terraced, some of it is not, but because it's sloped, it was a little bit cheaper than if you would buy perfectly flat land that's already been plowed a bunch of times, that's well kept. That will be more expensive. So here in the area, we live in the Castelo Branco district. It is my humble opinion that about €1 per square meter is a fair price for land that has been well kept, that maybe has a couple olive trees. If you have lots and lots of good olive trees that are still in working order, you can expect to pay a little bit more. If there's some agricultural buildings, maybe a ruin, if there are several wells that have lots of water, you can expect to pay more. I was kind of hesitant maybe to say how much we paid for the land, but I understand it can be helpful for some people. There are a few prefixes though. As you could have seen, our land was very, very, very overgrown, so it's a lot of work. Our land is has a story of a lot of land here in the region. The parents of the former owner used to farm this land. They kept the olive trees. They did a market garden. So while they were working it was really well kept. But then they got older, and his wife is from Porto, and they moved to the city together, as many families did here in the last few decades, because there's not much work around here. So they moved to Porto, and they still have a village in the house. We know them, they're very lovely people. We meet up whenever they are in the village. But this land, they were not able to maintain it. So in that sense, it was abandoned. They did own it, we did buy it from them. But they were not able, because of life, to take care of it. We did know that there were olive trees. We did know how many though. And we did see the well before we bought it. And we knew that it was a good well. And we paid 30 cents per square meter, which is the best deal that we found. It was the cheapest land that we looked at with this many hectares. Might not really be a realistic price for other people. We did look at some land just down the road here. It was also it was a little less than 3 hectares, with good olive trees and some ruins. And at the time, that was 18,000. So between 50 cents to €1 per square meter is realistic here, but that's really this area. If you go closer to Penamacor, where there's a big community, if you go more into the mountains, it's more expensive. From what we have seen, this is really the cheapest area in Portugal. For example, we looked at some land in Coimbra, Oliveira do Hospital area. €1 per square meter is really the minimum. As I wanted to start answering the final question for today, Pug felt that I wanted to talk about her. So here she is. We also got the question, will she go to Portuguese school, or can you do homeschooling here in Portugal? You can do homeschooling here in Portugal. What I do know is that the government has recently made it a little bit more difficult to do so, but I'm no expert on that field. So if you want to do homeschooling here in Portugal, maybe look up some other sources. So our plan is to send Puk to the local school in the village, a Portuguese school. we feel that it's really important for her to learn proper Portuguese from Portuguese people, and school is an excellent way to do that. From what we've heard, she can start at 3 years old in kind of a kindergarten setting. So next year she'll be going to school. It's also a good way for us to further integrate and meet some other young families in the area. And just in general, I think homeschooling is a very big time investment, and we might be able to do it intellectually, but time-wise, because we build a business here, because we do the farm and everything, I don't feel like we can really do homeschooling the way I would have wanted to. So that's also why we decide that school is a good option. I have to say, there are mixed reviews from our friends who have sent their kids to Portuguese schools. They can be a little traditional, and there's not so much choice as there is in the Netherlands to pick if you want a Steiner school or Dalton or Montessori or something like that. That's not really, especially here in the area where there are not many schools in general, you can't choose a more free way of education. That's something we have to deal with. It is what it is. If we would have lived in the city, I would have sent Puck to a Steiner school, but that's not a possibility here. So we do feel that the advantages that school has for her and for us kind of outweigh the disadvantages. So we will send her to Portuguese school. Okay, I think I have rambled for long enough. I had many more questions. I'm sure I will answer them in the upcoming videos. I have some other video ideas in mind about planning the land, showing you a map, all that type of more fun planning stuff. So that's all upcoming. I still have to make them. First we need to finish the kitchen and start building our shower, and then we can move on. I hope you enjoyed. That's it for today, and I'll see you guys on Sunday. And so my furniture style is more like 50s, 60s vintage. Oh, the whole family is here now. Woo!
Kom maar bij. Oh, wil je niet?
Oké.
Nog een keer.
Messy.